worldwide to receive the first batch of vaccine funding by the European Union. Getting vaccines is good, but producing them is even better.
DEK is rapidly completing the civil construction because of his excellency vision and initiative to set up Presidential Vaccines Manufacturing Committee, who developed the business plan for vaccines manufacturing in Ghana. Once proven that Ghana is the most appropriate country in West Africa to have vaccines manufacturing factory, VMC invited private sector to join hands to build the mega projects to manufacture vaccines in Ghana. DEK Vaccines Limited was officially selected to lead the vaccines manufacturing in Ghana. Kina Pharma Limited, the only shareholder of DEK Vaccines Limited, stepped ahead to make His Excellency the President of Ghana vision into reality. Dr. Kofi Nsiapoku, the chairman of the Kina Group Limited and managing director of DEK, this is the evidence of partnership of DEK and Serum Institute of India in the production of vaccines in Africa. Serum Institute of India, the largest vaccines manufacturer in the world, is developing working relationship with DEK for engineering support, technology transfer of upcoming vaccine platforms, and supply of drug substance and production capacity by 90 million vaccine doses of oral cholera vaccine under tech transfer from EU biologics per annum and reducing disparities in vaccine access for African children. DEK tech transfer for oral cholera vaccine and other vaccines will add 600 million doses of vaccines in global vaccine production and supplies. This is to create the far-reaching impact of these technology transfer on the global vaccination landscape, with a focus on African region. DEK's 600 million doses per annum production capacity is a strong step towards health security of Africans and preparedness for the next pandemic. DEK Vaccines Limited, made in Africa, for Africa.
What do you want? You want to action. Then please, will you rise and welcome the President of the Republic who calls us to action at the Ghana Vaccine Manufacturing Investment Forum, His Excellency John Prez Mahama.
Thank you. Please resume your seats. Thank you very much. I will be brief. I just want to acknowledge Ministers of State, the team from the National Vaccine Institute, our vaccine manufacturers, pharmaceutical industry, and I'll just say distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege for me to join you here this morning for the Ghana Vaccines Manufacturing Investment Forum. This is a vital platform and at a critical time in our journey towards health, sovereignty, and industrial transformation. Today we're not simply talking about vaccines, we're discussing our collective capacity as a nation and continent to take charge of our health, our economy, and our future. Nearly a decade ago, my government took a bold step to revitalize Ghana's pharmaceutical sector. What we did was we eased the burden on local manufacturers by removing duties on over 510 active pharmaceutical ingredients and selected inputs that they required for their manufacture. We also invested over $27 million in 6 selected Ghanaian-owned pharmaceutical companies, and this sparked a quiet revolution in local pharmaceutical manufacturing. Now, what this investment did was it allowed the companies to expand their production lines and increase their operating capital, and also allowed several of those companies to become major exporters of pharmaceutical products into other countries in the sub-region. Now, these were not isolated interventions, they were part of a broader strategy to shift Ghana from dependency to production and self-sufficiency. But we understood even then that health is not only a social good, but it is a strategic and economic imperative. Today we've gone even further. One of my first actions as president, as the Minister of Health just said, was to uncap the National Health Insurance Levy. What the previous government had done was to pass the capping and alignment law, which meant that every statutory fund that exceeds a certain percentage of the budget, the extra funds went back into the consolidated fund. And so what we did was to uncap this fund, and this allowed the National Health Insurance Authority to front load over $24 million in co-finance to Gavi this year. And so that has guaranteed that Ghanaian children will have access to life-saving vaccines for the year 2025. This is important because you remember a few years ago, we ran out of vaccines because we couldn't pay for them. And as you are aware, in 2030, Ghana is going to transition from Gavi. And I believe that this forum could not have been more timely because it makes us able to prepare so that by the time we transition from Gavi's support, we will have a robust vaccine manufacturing capacity that will lay the foundation for us to be self-reliant in vaccine supply. The events of the last few years, and like the Minister of Agribusiness just said, maybe it's a bit hackneyed, COVID-19 pandemic, the global supply chain disruptions reaffirmed the truth that we need to establish our own vaccine manufacturing capacity. Despite housing a sixth of the world's population, Africa received less than 1% of global vaccine production during the crisis. This was not just an oversight, it was a structural failure. I strongly support the African Union's goal of producing at least 60% of our vaccines locally by 2040. This is not merely an aspiration, it is a continental obligation that we must achieve. As I've often said, the next pandemic is not a question of if, but it's a question of when. And when it happens, Africa must be ready. This forum occurs when Ghana lays the groundwork for a new economy, a 24-hour economy that is driven by productivity, value addition, and industrial innovation. The vaccine manufacturing drive sits at the intersection of this transformation. Yesterday, we hosted the African Health Sovereignty Summit, where we launched the SUSTAIN initiative. And this means scaling up sovereign transition and institutional networks. This initiative is our call for investment-driven, country-led health systems built on local partnership and local ownership and regional cooperation. So today's forum builds on that vision, bringing together government, the private sector, investors, diplomatic partners, and academia. Well, researchers are in academia, so you're covered. To create a robust and globally competitive vaccine ecosystem. But let me now announce a significant step forward, and I'm sure Soji and his team will be very happy to hear this one. To accelerate this agenda, the government of Ghana is committing an additional $50 million We're committing an additional $50 million to the seed capital of the National Vaccine Institute. And so this will raise the total to $75 million. They already were given $25 million, so we'll raise the seed capital to $75 million. This investment will be directed towards building and equipping vaccine manufacturing infrastructure. And so DEK and all of you, I'm sure you can smile at that. It will support compliance with international regulatory standards. It will train Ghanaian scientists and technicians through the Ghana Biomanufacturing Training Consortium. But let me point out that this is not charity, it is strategy. We believe Ghanaians have the capacity to innovate and deliver solutions for Africa. We're also encouraged by the positive signs this morning, especially the contribution from the representative of the Afro-Exim Bank, which is exploring the possibility of investing over $113 million in two of Ghana's key vaccine manufacturing firms, Atlantic Life Sciences, that you heard from today, and DK Vaccines Limited. These conversations must be expedited, and I assure you of government's full support for de-risking these investments through guarantees and tailored financing instruments. Ladies and gentlemen, supply without demand is unsustainable. I've directed the National Vaccine Institute to work with the Ministries of Health, the Ministries of Trade and Agribusiness and Industry to develop a cabinet proposal for advanced market commitments for locally manufactured vaccines. What this means is that we'll commit public sector procurement to buy made in Ghana vaccines. And this will create predictable demand for local manufacturers. We'll also strengthen our procurement systems to align with our industrial and public health goals. And this is sector-wide. We're coming up with a list of made in Ghana products, and we're going to amend the procurement law to ensure that local manufacturers will be the first to be considered in any government procurement. And so it cuts across all sectors. I expect these commitments to be formalized within the next 2 months, sending an unambiguous signal to the market that Ghana backs its words with action. But let us be realistic. Ghana's domestic market alone is insufficient to sustain full-scale vaccine manufacturing. However, the ECOWAS market of over 400 million people and the Africa-wide market of about 1.3 billion people presents a powerful opportunity for us. Our vaccine manufacturing strategy is regional by design, and as President, I'll champion Ghana's participation in the Africa CDC's pooled procurement mechanism and advocate for broader market access across the African continent. I'll also encourage collaboration with our neighboring countries to build a distributed manufacturing ecosystem where no single country tries to do it all. Still, each contributes its strength to a resilient and shared solution that is beneficial to all of us. Building Ghana as a pharmaceutical hub, our three-pillar strategy, our ambition to make Ghana a pharmaceutical manufacturing hub rests on three core pillars. The first is infrastructure and investment. And under this is establishing biotech industrial parks, reducing energy tariffs for the pharmaceutical industry, offering tax incentives for research and development. My brother researcher, you'll be happy to hear that. The second pillar is human and capital development. And under this, training a new generation of biotechnologists, regulatory scientists and production engineers through domestic and international partnerships. And the third pillar is policy and partnerships. And under this is strengthening institutions such as the FDA and the National Vaccine Institute as regulators, promoting local procurement and export support for the industry, and collaborating with global partners to enhance regulatory readiness. The Ghana Food and Drugs Authority is already a WHO maturity level 3 regulator and is on track to become one of the continent's first fully accredited vaccine regulators. And thanks to Mimi and her team for the work that they have done. And so we'll continue to work closely with the European Union, our partners, with the German government, the GIZ, the World Bank, and the WHO to be able to achieve this. I expect that following today's forum, the National Vaccine Institute and its partners will consolidate these ideas into a national vaccine manufacturing investment roadmap. This should serve as a practical guide, highlighting financing needs, policy enablers, and partnership models, and be incorporated into the National Vaccine Institute's forthcoming 5-year strategic plan. Now my final call. Let me end this with this call. To our investors and partners, Ghana is open for business. But more than that, we're ready for partnership. We're not just looking for financiers, we're looking for co-creators of a future where vaccines are made in Africa by Africans and for Africans. This is about more than health. This is about jobs for our young people. It's about technology transfer for our industries. It is about dignity and self-reliance for our continent. And so let this forum be remembered not just as a talking shop, but as marking the turning point. And so let us leave here not with applause, but with agreements, commitments, and action plans. And let us work to make Ghana the pharmaceutical heartbeat of Africa and a 24-hour economy that never sleeps. I thank you, and may God bless our collective efforts.